Buongiorno, buon pomeriggio, e buonasera, Lazio world. Welcome to our emergency pod. Back-to-back days recording. Caleb, what a day. And we knew or had a feeling this was coming, but Igor Tudor is out as Lazio manager, officially announced about an hour ago on Lazio's official channels. Igor Tudor resigning. He was not fired. Again, rumors of this impending breakup started a few days ago, and it had been sourced that the two parties, Lotito and Tudor, had a number of meetings to discuss transfer market strategy, discuss how this side would align, everything from how they wanted to line up to some of the players that they've invested in. Ultimately, both sides coming to an understanding that they were not on the same page. And, I think, this is obviously big news. This is obviously something that we kind of anticipated. Igor doesn't come with a track record of staying at clubs very long. This might be even a record for him. But I'll start by asking Caleb, what are your instant reactions? How are you feeling about this news?
Yeah, my instant reactions are I can't believe we're doing a second emergency pod for another coach leaving.
Oh, I can believe it, baby. This is
That's
this
fair.
is
That's
par for
fair.
the course. I mean, shoot. Uh, I don't. This isn't even the wildest thing that I can remember in the last 5-6 years. I think about the time that Bielsa was
Yes, yeah.
hired on, and it was like 24 hours later. Well, I guess he's not our manager. Simone
Yeah.
Inzaghi, come on back. So, maybe that worked out for us. Maybe this has some of that same juju for us. But what's your sentiment on on Tudor leaving? Are you happy about it? Do you see this as a good thing, a bad thing? Like where do you land?
Yeah, I think uh as much as I like what I saw on the pitch from Tudor's team, and obviously some of the results, he managed to get some when we needed some, got European soccer, it had to be done. It had to be done. I mean, if you start out a stint, right? If you start out a summer window and you're preparing for next season, everyone has got to be aligned, right? That's the biggest thing. You can have a coach that's maybe less talented, less skilled, but if they align with this, sporting director, in this case, Lotito, right? If everyone is on the same page, aligns, and of course, there's a good relationship with the players, it's really difficult to not do well, right? And it was clear that Lotito and Tudor had completely different ideas of what this roster should be. For one personally am very proud of Lotito and everyone involved of sticking to their guns. Igor had a little bit of leverage. He's like, hey, I got you to European soccer, right? But they believed in the roster that they built up to this point. They believe in the transfers and the signings that we made throughout the last year. Guendouzi, Ravella, Isaacson, all these guys. A lot of these guys didn't gel with Tudor. And Lotito stuck to his gun, said, no, we believe in these guys. We think these guys are the future. If you cannot accept that, bye. In this case, Tudor, respect to him as well, was like, you know what, this is clearly not going to work. Saw it and said, hey, I'm out. And so respect to him for that as well. We don't have to pay him anything. And I think this is the best move for both parties.
Yeah, I look. We thought he should have been a temporary solution, and I never liked the fact that was presented with a contract longer than just the end of the season, and we kind of needed just a stopgap. So, good on it ultimately landing that way. Important that he resigned. So, Lotito for the win there, not having to cough up and pay a manager not on contract. He's no longer on contract. So Lotito saves a little bucks there. Same as Sadi, right? Sadi resigned. So, but I think for me, it always came down to the relationship with the players. And we all said this at nauseum now. We thought we had a solid transfer market the year before, and there was players that we really, really liked. And I appreciated what Tudor brought in the moment, and we were able to find results, and our point tally during his time was nothing to scoff at. But key players, Rovella, Guendouzi, Isaacson, he wanted to do away with. He wanted to go in a very different direction. And for me, that simply was too far in a different direction for my liking, obviously for Lotito's liking, obviously for Tudor. And we're just not a club that can fix these things. And it would have been one hell of a bumpy ride, I think, right? It took a few years to get to this place. And, it just, for me, it was, if you're telling me, hey, we keep Rovella and Guendouzi or it's Tudor, arrivederci Tudor. And, so I see this as a good thing. Now, the question looms on who are we going to get? But, this is no surprise. He's rubbed players the wrong way in the past. The track record is there. And even right immediately, like there were the question marks about Guendouzi. And so, I think, I wish this would have happened maybe a little bit sooner because their manager's already off, the list of potential replacements that have landed jobs. But let's talk about where we may look to, Caleb. Who are some of the managers that we're seeing out there currently linked to Lazio? And then let's talk about maybe how realistic some of it is.
Yeah, so there's not too many links out right now, but some initial ones did come out. First of all, I think the number one candidate, according to these sources, multiple different sources, 2 or 3 of them, is Marco Baroni. Marco Baroni currently coaches Hellas Verona. And you can give me your thoughts on him afterwards, but this for me is sort of a very similar profile to Tudor, as in he's in these clubs for most times just 1 or 2 years. He's not really a project guy, and it kind of seems that, at least for me, that's the sort of profile we should be looking for. And so Beroni is number one option. Baroni looks like the number one option. Personally, not in favor of it. No, thank you, Pat. That's a hard pass.
That is a hard pass. Just when I think about him, we're talking about a manager that has been at Verona. He's got a lengthy managerial career, but has never been able to really make that next step. We're talking about again a manager. Verona, prior to that, Lecce, Regina, Cremonese, Frosinone, Benevento. Like he's never been able to make that leap. And for me, it shows absolutely a lack of intent and a lack of vision to appoint a manager like that. So for me, that is maybe the only one on this list that you'll continue to work through that I am vehemently against. So not a fan of that one.
Another option that has been thrown into that hat recently has been Klose. Would be club legend, will return here. Has minimal coaching experience, but with Inzaghi is a perfect example of somebody that took that opportunity, really ran with it. He bleeds Lazio blue, right? He bleeds these colors, and for that reason, that tends to work well in the past, right? Players that have played with the club, players that know the identity, that can sort of connect with fans, they tend to do well, regardless of experience. So Klose is an option.
Just to touch on Klose, I want to make sure we're kind of touching on each one.
Okay.
For me, a lot of it is about timing. I would have loved to have seen Klose this past season in that interim role, giving him some experience, feeling him out, very similar to what Roma did with De Rossi. But now, And no disrespect, like I would like a serious manager, one that comes with a little bit more experience. I don't need a ton of experience. I'm not saying it needs to be, a manager with 20 years, but look, Klose was an assistant at Bayern and most recently spent a couple seasons in the Austrian league. But again, it just I'd love to bring him into the fold with our academy. When you think about Inzaghi's journey, he spent a number of years with the Primavera and was really close with the club prior to his emergency appointment, and then got some time with the firing of Pioli before being appointed after Bielsa kind of left town. So for me, Klose is probably I don't think he's the right appointment either.
No, I agree. I'm totally on board with that. Not enough experience. Timing is huge. I'll throw him in there as interim. That's a great test run. So trial by fire. If he passes, hey, give him a job. Why not? But we're beyond that point. But I will say, like, if there's no better option, he's cheap. It wouldn't be the worst. I'm not totally never want to see this happen, but I'm not really for it all that much. The next option is Sadi. As a maybe surprise option to some, but Sadi apparently is open to a return. However, it requires some guarantees specifically within the roster, guarantees that we have never seen Lotito sort of give up for other coaches. And so I'm personally doubtful of this happening or them coming to an accord, because Sadi very much wants – this is Sadi's squad at the end of the day. Like, these sort of changes that we made, even though Sadi says some of these signings weren't made with his approval, at the end of the day, they were with the thought process of, hey, they need to fit into the 4-3-3 Sadi system. So, hey, that's not the worst option if he's open to it, if he's keen. Maybe he can take this next wave. I know before he left, he talked about sort of getting rid of the old guard, like the dead weight. He mentioned this a few times. And Alberto leaving, Felipe out, there is very much a chance to sort of restart in a way. So personally, Sadi would be a very interesting option. I'm totally open to it, because there are not many coaches at that level, that pedigree, that would come to Lazio and are willing there. And so that's for sure viable.
Yeah, there's a lot that would need to be mended. It would come with some guarantees. Here's why that one would intrigue me, and would only intrigue me because Sadi left. He made a decision that he felt like he couldn't move forward. We know that Lotito can be difficult, but if somebody of Sadi's stature, ego, stubbornness as well, is willing to come back, I'm simply making the assumption that Lotito is giving him what is required for Sadi to believe he can be successful. And that means some demands on the transfer markets, moving a couple players. So that would intrigue me, because at least maybe we would get to continue a project with some more assurances, hopefully some more investments, would really be intriguing. But I'll be honest, I don't know if I see that happening. Now, it wasn't as fractured of a relationship as some might make it seem, at least not between Lotito and Sarri. It seems like a lot of it was more some of the senators on the team, so that again are probably on their way out, whether it's Luis Alberto. So I don't know. That one is certainly intriguing, though. Who else do you have?
Yeah, and one more point on Sadi, I think another testament to maybe why he's so keen on it is after he was interviewed multiple times after he left, and in one of those interviews, he mentioned that I came into Lazio with sort of a preconceived notion of the fandom and the club, and I came out pleasantly surprised. It generally seemed that Sadi did fall in love with fans, did fall in love with the club. And I think that's a big testament to kind of the culture there, and as well, in his case, why he's willing to come back, because he does feel something special here. And so, I mean, I guarantee he probably doesn't say that about Chelsea. Chelsea probably feels very plasticky, that, it's completely different, right? No shame shot at Chelsea in the Prem. Any chance I can
all the shame. Yeah.
I want to talk
Carlo
about
FC undefeated against Chelsea.
Yep. They can't even beat MLS clubs. Come on.
That's
now.
Right.
Another interesting option, another big high-profile Italian coach, Allegri, who just got sacked at Juventus. Apparently has been rumored to come, maybe open to move to Lazio. Another club that has been sort of peeping around has been Milan. For one, this is really interesting for me because Allegri has gotten a lot of results in his life. I mean, people hate on the style of play that he brings. People may not be very fond of him, particularly Juve fans, but let's not forget this guy made a Champions League final not so long ago with the team there at Juventus. But me personally, I don't know. I just don't think this is a good fit. Not because I don't rate Allegri. I just don't think it's a good fit with Lazio. And but would I be like mad if it happened? Not really. I mean, I'll take it. Like, it's cool. Like,
I would
fine.
take that in a heartbeat. And here's why. One, in similar profile to Sadi, in that it would be a statement. Like, it shows some intent. You don't sign a manager like Allegri without there being a desire to win matches. And I don't give a damn about style. I'll say that I don't care about that. One of the most overrated things
Yes.
in football conversations, absolutely overrated. I don't care about it. We talk about with the Azzurri, like, oh, the style and this, and I don't care. Take me back to the 90s. Take me back to when Italy was winning football matches because of an elite defense, 1-0, perfect. Because you know what we didn't have at Lazio this year? We didn't have style or results. We had to punish ourselves by watching god awful attack, and we didn't have the results to boot. Give me the results. I will deal with an ugly style of play as long as the results are there. And if Allegri can do that, sign me up, because we have seen a lack of beautiful play and a lack of results. So I think it would be a statement. Again, Allegri, who is coached at the highest levels and won plenty of trophies to do that, to bring that to Lazio. He's a smart man. He's not going to do it in similar vein to what I said about Sadi, right? If Sadi comes and signs on, it gives me some confidence that at least some agreements have been made. Same as Allegri. He's no fool. He knows Lotito good and well. And so if he is signing on board, there's got to be some confidence and some assurances that come with that. So I would very much welcome him with open arms.
And another thing that I think helps the case for Allegri is having a higher profile can get you maybe some players you wouldn't normally get, right?
Absolutely. Which is what happened with Sadi, right? Players like Guendouzi that, were excited to play with somebody as with his notoriety and some tactics that are pretty well known. So absolutely opens doors that probably wouldn't have been open otherwise.
Yeah, so Allegri absolutely would be one of the, in my opinion, top 3 best options. Would it be my favorite? Probably not. But man, it's tough to beat that. And I'm also with Shawn. I think style play is super overrated for me. Simeone is one of my favorite coaches, and he plays awful style. But man, it's so sick to me seeing them just grind and pump out these results. And I think there's a lot of respect and most of all, results, right? Just results. Yep. So we're looking for.
You play to win the games.
Play to win the game, not play to entertain. That's cool and all, yeah, but I tell you what, it's a lot more fun winning a game ugly than losing the game pretty.
Yep.
So a popular name that's been swung around in Lazio circles, a beloved name, has been Conceição, who was former coach of Porto. He recently just left, and while we would all love, I think both me and Shawn would be very open and excited to have him here. I think that it looks from reports that he is going to be going to Marseille, ironically, considering Igor was at Marseille before. It turns out that Conceição looks to be the favorite to take over at Marseille. And so the likelihood of that happening seems to be likely, but it's soccer, it's football. Anything can happen. So maybe, hey, Lotito gives him a call, says, hey, don't go to Marseille, come here. We're ready for you. And maybe, we could see. What about you? What do you think about him?
Yeah, I mean, he's my number one. Obviously, dream signing in so many ways. He checks a lot of boxes, right? There's the nostalgia. He was a player for Lazio. He won the Scudetto in 99-2000. He's a player that has a strong pedigree, has been at a good club like Porto, is ready to move on from there after being there for a few years. Frank here, Van Etchik, on YouTube comments in that word is that Conceição has put his discussions with Olympique Marseille on hold. Now, I don't know what the source is on that, but if true, would be a very, very strong indicator that there might be some interest. And look, for me, if there's ever a time for Lotito to throw a bag and to dish anything out to get something done, this would be the time to do it. He's number one on my list. I know he's probably number one on so many others. And in terms of timing, the timing is right. He's available. He is available, and I mean, so many times, right? We think about Diego Simeone so many years, right? I've wanted him to be a manager at Lazio. Timing doesn't make sense. He's making an incredible salary. In order for him to ever take that step down, it's got to be at the end of his managerial career, and the nostalgia is not going to be enough to supplement what he'd be losing in salary. With Conceição, it kind of aligns enough where it just makes sense. So I just hope and pray that Lotito sees it that way. For me.
No, my absolute favorite option as well. He kind of ticks every box, right? I think a lot of these managers we talked about tick some boxes. I don't think any one of them, except Conceição, ticks all of them, right? I think he's ex-Lazio player, gets the club, gets the culture, has success, has experience. Is the timing is right, the salary right. This is a perfect next step for him to break into the top 5 leagues. It's perfect. Lotito, give that man a call, ring him up right now. We, at the very least, we got to ring him up, right? And so that's it for the rumored options. We can talk about maybe some potential options outside of that maybe we're interested in.
Yeah, and I'll throw a couple out in the vein of Conceição, who again ticks probably every box. A few others in a category of former Lazio players. You mentioned Klose already, but I want to throw out a couple others. You've got Alessandro Nesta, who is currently managing at Reggiana in Serie B. Now, mid-table in Serie B, nothing sexy, but he's had a few years of managerial experience. You've got the likes of Almeida, Matias Almeida, another player from that Scudetto winning side at Athens. Now, Almeida, we were familiar with him from his time in Major League Soccer. Bumpy times during that stint, but when he was in Liga MX, again, had a little bit of a roller coaster, but did win a championship with Chivas. And so there's some interesting experience that comes with him. What do you think, surface level, about two former Lazio players that are high profile in terms of their player status with a little bit of managerial experience? What do you think of those two?
They're interesting. Again, for me, it's more so it's the timing again. Like if you're gonna do a move like that, it has to be sort of an interim move first. Would I be super opposed to it? Not as much as other people, but I still think we can do better and should definitely push for somebody with a little more experience, with a little more. Nothing's guaranteed in football. Nothing is. Anyone's a risk. That's the reality of the sport. That's the volatility of the sport. But yeah, I mean, it'd be cool, but it would be disappointing for me personally.
Okay. Who were your offshoot players or managers that you're thinking?
So I want to go the approach of like really out there. Like zero connections to the club for the most part. But I will give reasons of why that maybe could be a good fit after that, right? And so there's the Zedby. The Zedby is an option that I immediately thought about when I heard about coaching options, who's available. The Zedby is one of the most attractive options out there for people who really care about play style. He absolutely ticks that box. However, what I like about the Zedby, more so than the play style, is his ability to identify talent, particularly young talent, right? I think of someone like Saxon who could really thrive over someone like that, right? Someone who has used minimal resources, doesn't require much money to seek success, and gets more out of the group than maybe what people expect. For me, that's the kind of coach that strives at Lazio, someone that can get more than the parts of the team, right? That can go beyond that. And I think the Zebby could do that. However, is that realistic? I think the Zebby's probably shooting for higher. He just came off, even if he was at Brighton, he just came off a Premier League salary. Not sure how much he was getting paid.
No, I'm glad you just quick interjection. You mentioned the word for me that's really important, and that's salary.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what he was making. Probably do a quick search on that, but we're talking Premier League salary, and once you get that, it's hard to go back. And it's the Simeone issue. I mean, it's really really tough unless you have managed a very very long time and you're quite comfortable at that point in your career, which is even again we talk about Allegri. I don't know Allegri would be taking a salary cut, but that's still Serie A salaries when in comparison to the insane amount that the Prem is throwing. It's tough.
I did a quick search. He was making around 2 million euros.
2 mil?
Actually, yeah, 2 mil, which
okay.
Actually was less than I expected.
That's surprising.
Yeah, so he's making 2 mil. Well, to be fair, he was kind of an unknown nobody up before Brighton, to be fair. But now he's a somebody. And I do still think playing in the coaching in the Prem is a factor because you have an inflation, not just for players, but coaches as well, I believe. I do think a coach that succeeds in the Prem can demand more money than someone that maybe succeeds in Italy, even though they may be an inferior coach. So I still think there's a Prem tax, but only 2 million euros a year. How much would you say would be Lazio's budget? How much do you think maximum they pay for someone? How much was Sadi on?
Let's take a quick look. I mean, my guess is 3.5.
So it says 1 point. I think it says 1.8 pounds, 1.8 million pounds, which is around
for Sadi.
Yeah.
The first thing I see is a 3.5 million per season. Yep.
Interesting. I see on wage indicator.uco he makes how much is that in dollars? It's 2.5 mil, it says here in dollars, USD. But between 2.5, 3.5. Yep. So I mean, if you offered the Zerbi maybe 3, he might be willing to take it. I don't know, but
we've got Razvan here on YouTube confirming that it was 3.5 net without bonuses. So, that's a strong. That for me was the biggest thing with, and that's in euros, was the biggest thing with Sadi, right? That shows intent that was above what we were accustomed to. So I think that's obviously a little bit of a pay bump for De Zerbi. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one for me for sure.
And I like another thing to add about the ZB is he is very much like a project coach. It seems like a guy that likes to be there at least 2-3 years, build something up, which is I think we're kind of in a moment in right now where we're kind of doing a reset and really need someone to sort of build this through. Another option here is Niko Kovac. Now, for those that don't know much about Niko Kovac, if you guys can remember, he was actually the really successful. He kind of put Frankfurt, this Frankfurt side that we know nowadays in the Bundesliga as a consistent Europa League side, kind of reaching that next level was due to Niko Kovac. And Niko Kovac really helped sort of push Frankfurt into the limelight and sort of take them to that next level. So I would say someone like Gasperini did at Atalanta, right? It was a kind of similar thing that he did for Frankfurt. Really made him this consistent top side in the Bundesliga. And why I like him, why I think he's an interesting option, not necessarily why I may like him or want him, is he also plays a 3-back system, which has always done well for Lazio. Tudor was playing a 3-back system, so the players that remained around still have an idea of how to sort of get adapted to that. And it's a system that Inzaghi played as well, right? And so bringing back a 3-back system could be helpful, could be beneficial. He's jobless right now. He had his most previous stints have come at Bayern Munich, which it was a weird stint because he sort of was more of a transition coach, and it was just a weird time at Bayern. And then he was just at Wolfsburg and got sacked from there. So that's an option. It's an interesting one. And last but not least is my crazy out of left field option. Would be absurd. But hey, there are some sort of science points, and maybe this could work. And this is a coach by the name of Ronnie Dela. To those who have not heard the name of Ronnie Dela won MLS Cup with New York City with Tati Castellanos. He turned Tati Castellanos from a nobody to a MVP in the league. And his most recent job was at Club Brugge. So he got to move from New York City, went to Club Brugge, and actually took them to the quarterfinals of Conference League. He actually had a lot of success. He was sitting top 4 side in Belgium, took him to the quarterfinals of Conference League, despite not being fair to do so, but got sacked. My understanding of that situation, it was more so a disconnect between him and ownership, not really so much the results. And so Ronnie Day is really interesting. And one more little spicy little point to add. He is Scandinavian. Now I can think of another coach we've had in the past who's Scandinavian, who was really successful here. You may know him as, the greatest coach of Lazio history, Eriksson. And so he's a really interesting out. Ronnie Dela is not from Sweden, but he's from Norway, and could be an interesting prospect as well. And Lazio would be a step up as well, right? He coached right outside the top 5 leagues. He plays a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 system. So a lot of the players that we signed for that system would also kind of fit right into there. And maybe if anyone knows how to get the most out of Tati and the 17 million we spent on him, it would be Ronnie. So those are my options. If you have any thoughts on that, please share. But those are kind of my more out there options.
Yeah. I don't know. Another name out there is Stefano Pioli, obviously managed at the club prior to Simone, and found some success at Milan. He's currently jobless, and so he's available. I'm not sure how excited I would be about that, but it is a known commodity. Before we close it out here, obviously we talked about what we want. There's a lot of desire for Conceição. I think there's a few managers that we would be very happy with. I would love De Zerbi. What's your prediction? Like, where do we land? Who do you think it ends up being?
Man, this is really tough because, a few years back after Inzaghi, I think a lot of us thought that we're going to settle for somebody, just kind of settle for somebody kind of similar, low cost, maybe not too much experience. We ended up going for Sarri, Maurizio Sarri, and Lotito surprised all of us. I think Lotito surprised us in the Mercato last year. It does seem to me, I get this feeling within the front office, even though I know some people are big haters of Lotito, but I get this feeling that Lotito really wants to hit that next level. The finances are good, but it feels to me there's a little bit more ambition lately. There's a bit of a desire and path to maybe, hey, can we maybe finally be a consistent Champions League team that reaches Champions League for 2 consecutive years, 3 consecutive years? Could we do that? Signing someone like Sarri sort of represented that to me, of like, we want to become a more consistent side and really be known as one of the premier sides in the league. With that said, man, I really don't know. I really have no idea. And I get this feeling that Lotito might want to go out for a yes man. Someone
So
that
I'm seeing what I'm kind of reading and seeing is that Fabiani, Lotito's right hand man, wants Baroni, but Lotito, is skeptical, and I think my guess is he's probably reading the situation a little bit in terms of like what type of response that'll get, response from the fans, and cause for concern there. I think you're right in that Lotito probably wants to make a little bit of a splash, like all of these guys. There's egos in play, and you go from a Sarri to Tudor, and now even more of a step back. I think he probably wants to come out looking like a good guy here, and there's a couple of ways you can do that. The best way is to get the right guy, but he can have some short term popularity in signing the wrong guy, but comes with club legend status. So, if I'm really really nervous that it ends up being Baroni.
Me too.
That is kind of the sick feeling that I have. Conceição, it seems too good to be true. So even the likes of Allegri, it seems that there's probably too much distance there as well. So in terms of, I mean, again, things can change in 2 seconds. And we'll cover it. We'll be here to obviously talk about what ends up happening. It just seems right now that they're just so much closer to Baroni, and that worries me because it doesn't seem like they're that close with anybody else. Now, let's hope that a conversation can be had. I do think that if there's a conversation with Conceição, right, then I'll start to perk up a little bit. But I'll that's kind of where I stand right now. It's hard.
Yeah, same. I think that I'm not being hopeful. I'm being cautious. I hope Lotito comes through here and really pushes for someone a little more. I'm going to say flashy, but I mean, Baroni is that is about as drab as you can get. I mean, what is that signal to fans? And Lotito, as you said, should be aware of that. Of like that for me is a loser signing. That's just a loser signing. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
We will see what happens, and we will obviously jump on to discuss it. Let us know your thoughts, though. Throw them in the comments. Hit us up on Twitter, and give us your thoughts on who Lazio should be signing as their manager, and let us know who you think it'll actually end up being. We'll share all of those comments. As always, thank you for jumping on and listening. Sempre